Affirmations of a real. You want your shit. Hey, ain't nobody fucking. Hey, hype me up. Hype me up. Hey y'all. Welcome to Shade in the City. It's your girl Trees. I'm back and I'm better. A little better, like 80% better. But yes, I am back to get beyond the gates. This is episode 90 to 91. So this was Tuesday and Wednesday. What I missed, I'm gonna come back with Thursday tomorrow morning, but it's late because I had to do King's Court with Nels because blatant truth, she wouldn't let me off the clock. She said I ain't got no more PTO on the bank. So you go yell at Nels because she ain't got the time cards right and stuff like that. But anyway, no, I missed y'all. I wanted to get up here. I wanted to thank everyone for their well wishes. I really, really appreciate y'all. I love y'all. It literally made me happy, but I ain't even gonna hold you. I was so mad that I could not come here and report to y'all about everything that was going on, and I refused to watch. So I was sitting in the bed, man, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna just sit here and watch this Dateline and this Snap, and I'm gonna just sleep as much as I can until I can get rid of this so I can get up here and give y'all these recaps, okay? Um, so yeah, y'all. If you haven't already, please make sure that you hit that like button. And for all the new viewers, if you liking the vibe, please go ahead and subscribe, okay? And yeah, let's get into this recap of Beyond the Gates, okay? Oh, and also let me mention tomorrow for the members, but also for everyone, I am opening up the gates, okay? This week, and I'm opening up the live to everyone tomorrow night, Friday. I'm thinking I'm gonna set it for like 8 p.m. and we all go come here and talk everything beyond the gates. I'm gonna drop the link if you want to come down, give your thoughts about this week, give your predictions, and just talk all things beyond the gates because that's what we love to do here. Okay, we're gonna do it tomorrow. So meet me there. Be there or be square. Okay, but yeah. So let's get into it and let's get shady. All right, y'all. So we start off episode 90. Vanessa meets Danny at the country club to discuss locations for the Dupree Curtis modeling agency, right? And so Vanessa tells her that Georgetown is a given because, U Street, also known as Black Broadway, which is a host of Black culture, business, and entertainment. And I loved hearing this and just having my fun in my U Street days and knowing all the culture. It's beautiful and it's fun hearing this when you live here, right? Um, so Danny is worried about her going back into modeling and worries if it'll fail or hurt her legacy. And Vanessa thinks, you know what, girl, it's a great idea because you are you. You are Danny Dupree, girl. Don't doubt yourself. And so Vanessa tries to ease her concerns and tells her, you'll be a role model to all the other models. And so then she gets a text and she runs off. It was a very brief little thing, but we know we knew they was looking for a place, a little studio spot, right? So Naomi comes home to change her shoes because I guess something and so Jacob is preoccupied in his phone. He barely listening to her. She trying to fill him in on what's going on with June when she realizes, oh damn, he not listening to me, okay? So she has a seat on his lap, okay? And so Jacob said, look, my bad. But with all this in them jeans, okay. He said, all right, you got my attention. All right. And so he tells her, look, I just got off the phone with Smitty and he thinks Martin is a little in over his head. He tells her about KKK Kenny showing up at the house and being around the kids, and that he asked that Martin had asked for police protection from Marcel about out of all the people that he would ask. And so Naomi is confused just as much as Jacob because Jacob is like, Smitty's theory about Martin being scared of Marcel might be wrong, because it seems like they might be working together. And so Naomi tries to shrug it off apart. That's just a part of Martin's job. He has to support the police. He's a congressman, And Jacob said, I'm not accusing Martin of doing anything wrong, but I do think the situation is coming to a head and it ain't cute. All right. Martin is down at Offer Jeans. He's decided to hold a press conference, and the press noticed that, none of his family or the usual staff are around. Vernon walks in and he's like trying to steal Martin away so he can have a word. And he's like, look, I'm thankful I got here in time. So Vernon lets Martin know that Bill told him, look, I heard you was being a little rash and emotional, and I'm not going to hold you. I already told y'all this whole situation with how Vernon continues to ignore Martin's mental health is beyond me. Okay. But Martin tells his grandfather he's just having a press conference and Vernon wants to know for what. So Martin feels like, well, if he gets it out, it'll be all over. And Vernon reminds him, and so will everything else in your life. Think about it. Think about it. So Vernon's like, look, what you're doing is reckless and irresponsible. And Martin mentions how, KKK Kenny is coming after his family. So Vernon admits that he heard what KKK Kenny did, and it also upset him. But he tries to convince Martin that a public confession is not the way to go. Wrong road. Wrong road. Okay. So Martin thinks that this is best for his kids and questions why his grandfather is so against him when he knows what happened, and says that, they were retaliating against an obvious hate crime. So they finally are letting us know what this is. So then we learn that Martin was acting in defense of Vernon. But Vernon said, yeah, but we also didn't report it. And this could sabotage your career and your reputation. So Martin said, I don't care as long as my kids are safe. And I was here with Martin. So Vernon tries to convince Martin that they can pay Kenny off and get him to go away. And he tells him that's what KK Kenny wants anyway, so he can keep getting paid, and said, his threats are empty. Martin said, what you're not going to do is play with me and my kids on my head top. That's what Martin said. And he reminds Vernon that, y'all messed up the first payoff, and that's why Kenny is pissed off and insane. All right. So Vernon reveals that it was Joey that actually messed up, which surprises Martin, who had no idea that Joey was in on it either. And said, I would have never gone along with it. Why are we messing with Joey Armstrong? What are we doing? Can y'all say it with me? Because y'all should know it by now. In the words of Deborah Cox, how did we get here? So Martin tells Vernon right now the only person he can trust is himself. So Vernon is practically begging at this point for Martin to reconsider this press conference and ask him, can you just please hold off for a few days so that I can prove that we'll be able to take care of KKK Kenny. And Martin wants no dealings with Joey. But Vernon tells him, look, difficult circumstances create unusual alliances. I said, checkmate. And Martin tells him that Joey is no ally, and they're basically trading one blackmailer for another. And I said, well, white mailer, but whatever you want to call it. So Joey and Marcel are playing cards while they're waiting to hear back from Marcel's boy on KKK Kenny. So Bill joins Joey and Marcel, and he's questioning, well, why you not out doing your job, sir? And Marcel lets him know, look, I got eyes on the man. And once I get word, I plan to handle it. So Bill tells him, well, your lack of urgency has Martin wanting to handle things himself, and is hopeful that Vernon, he's like, and I'm hopeful that Vernon can talk some sense into his little ninja. You know what I'm saying? Little YN, as they say, that's what the young people say. You know what I'm saying? And so Marcel gets the notifications. So they got Kenny. So he said he leaving. I want to know if y'all clock this. So Joey asked Bill if Vernon is aware of the plans for KKK Kenny. Bill tells him he informed him, but I'm skipping ahead. He really didn't. He's lying. He's lying because Vernon just said he just wanted to pay him off. And that might have been episode 89. He already said he don't want to go this route. He don't want to do this. So basically he lied. So Bill tells him that he did tell Vernon, and Joey is surprised because he's like, Vernon's usually Mr. Nonviolence, and Bill tells him about Kenny rolling up on the kids in Martin's house and said, that kind of changed things. And literally my note said, did it really, Bill? Or did you just lie? Okay. So then Bill gets a call letting him know that Martin is having this impromptu press conference, right? So now we jump over to the Smarty Kid household, okay? So Samantha is breaking down to Tyrell what happened with Martin and KK Kenny at the park and explains it's a lot and Martin isn't saying nothing. And so she tells Tyrell that Martin and Kenny know each other somehow and says that Kenny didn't just happen to meet them. He did it. He came around them on purpose. No, Sherlock. I'm sorry. Let me be nice to the little girl. I'm being mean. Let me stop. So Tyrell is confusion, and Samantha explains that she doesn't know what it is, but she knows KK Kenny has a family in his crosshairs, okay? So Samantha and Tyrell are trying to figure out, well, what's so bad that Martin wouldn't tell Smitty what's going on? And Samantha tells him that Martin has police watching the house and Smitty gave Martin an ultimatum. And so Tyrell's like, what? All that happened? Damn. And so he can't believe what he's hearing. And Samantha tells him she thinks that she might have witnessed them split up. And I said, not yet. Not yet. Wait for it. Wait for it. Smitty is at the park. Doing it in the park. Doing it after dark. Oh yeah. Rock Creek Park. Oh yeah. That's only for the DMV if y'all know. But so yeah, he's at the park when KKK Kenny rolls up on him, asking him if he's, you looking for me? Me, myself, and I. And he wants to know, Smitty's like, why the hell was you around my kids? So first of all, this is what I think is weird. And did anybody else question this? How did Smitty get in touch with Kenny, or how did Kenny know that Smitty was going to be at the park at the same time? Like, did anybody else have that question? Y'all drop down in the comments. Let me know. I'm just asking. Basically, Smitty wants to know, well, why are you around my kids? Like, what are you doing? And so Kenny tells him, well, you should ask Martin that question. So as KKK Kenny starts to walk off, Smitty said, no. Well, do you have a message for Martin? And so he tells him, tell your husband that he missed the deadline. And I want my money tonight. Not tomorrow, tonight. Smitty realizes that basically he's blackmailing him. Kenny lets him know, oh, so you thought Martin was the good guy in the story, when actually he's the bad guy. Samantha and Tyrell are still trying to figure out who KKK Kenny is and how he and Martin know each other. Smitty returns home and lets the kids know that he knows they got questions, but he needs a minute. He need a good minute. He can't right now. All right. So then back at the press conference, Martin is advising the press that he'll be starting in a few minutes when Joey walks in. So that's like kind of because he's like, what the hell Joey doing here? So Vernon lets him know, don't worry about it, Martin. I got it. He asks Joey, what the hell are you doing here? And so Joey tells him, I'm here to hear what my local congressman has to say of my district. And also make sure my name don't come up in none of this shit. All right. And Vernon assures him, look, no one wants to advertise a relationship with you. And I said, oh, the shade, Vernon. The shade. Clearly is not only the female Duprees that can read. Jesus. Basically, Martin feels he needs to do this because of the mess that he made. So Joey tells him, it ain't my fault. Did I do that? It ain't my fault. Did I do that? It ain't my fault. Sorry. He lets Vernon know that, look, it's being taken care of as we speak. So then Bill walks in and Vernon asks if he explained his expectations to Joey about not going rogue. And Bill says he did, but now it's Martin that's going rogue and reminds him that there's a lot of people participating thinking that, a lot of people that participated in this foolishness and mess, okay? Um, and they all thought that this would stay confidential. So Vernon said, look, I tried, and he's thinking with his heart instead of his head, and says, you should understand, you got kids. And he feels like coming forward is the only way to protect his family. And Bill said, well, I'm gonna try to talk to him again because I can't let him me up. So I'm supposed to have another ghost baby on the way. Can't let him mess up my life. You know what I'm saying? So back at Naomi and Jacob's house, okay, they sitting here talking about how, she's so worried for Martin, especially after, Ted and Nicole split. And she tells him, how growing up, the Richardsons were the stable part of the family. And Jacob reminds her that he never said Martin did anything wrong or illegal. And Naomi realizes that Martin has done something that he's clearly not proud of, or he'd be more open with Smitty. And Jacob can agree with that. And so Naomi talks about how secrets can destroy a relationship. And so Jacob asked her if she's thinking about her own dad, which Naomi admits to, because, Bill is a whole liar and, all his secrets. And she's just hopeful that Tyrell and Samantha don't have to learn an ugly truth about Martin like she did about Bill. And I was like, oh. And so Jacob says he understands that Naomi doesn't like secrets and questions whether he's like, damn, should I even have told you? And so she was like, no, you shouldn't feel that way. Um, she was like, I was just, because she was frustrated about June, and I ain't gonna hold you. Completely forgot about that. So Jacob tells her, well, retry this number that she called, and said Naomi calls again. He hypes up, hype me up. That was kind of the reason for my song. Hype me up, because he was hyping her up, okay, to make this phone call. And yeah, she got hung up on again. They didn't hype her up. They hung her up. Hung her up. Hung her up. That's what they did to her. But no, she she got hung up on, and so Jacob was like, call back. Like, he hyped up again. Only for the person on the other end said, don't call me no more. June is unalive to me. Hung me up. Hung me up. And that's what happened. Okay. So then Smitty returns back downstairs with suitcases and tells the kids that, look, I'm tired of your daddy. He doing the most. I can't do this no more. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you no more. Okay. Mark can't live here. You better leave me alone. Get your bags and get the hell on. Cause I don't want you no more. I mean, that's what Smitty was given. Okay. He was fed up. I would saying when a woman's fed up, but it's not appropriate for this situation. But you understand what I'm saying? He's fed up. Okay. So the smarty kids, they plead, daddy, no. But he makes it clear, look, I ain't got no choice. Your daddy out here disrespecting me. He been playing in my face, and I've been saying this, that Smitty needed to divorce Martin. Okay. He need to put his foot down. Show him better than he can tell him. He said, I am not going to be a Nicole or a Danny. That's what you are not going to do to me. So meanwhile, KKK Kenny, he gets a notification on his phone about the upcoming press conference. So the kids, they really upset, and they trying to convince Smitty to talk things out. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. And I really wanted to have this conversation with y'all. We can talk about it tomorrow in the live. I don't know if it's just my generation. Y'all, I'm gonna be 40 next year. The only thing I didn't like about this situation, I felt like, and I understand they're teenagers, and so maybe I don't know. I just felt like the kids were too involved in grown folks' business. And I may be wrong. And that's why I'm asking you. Like, I'm leaving the gates open. I'm not, it's a respectful space here. As long as y'all respectful, I'm open to opinions. I know this is a new day and it's a new age, and I grew up in a new era, and I would love to know, because I'm raising a child and I give him room to speak. But I think if it was a relationship situation or a family situation between me and his father, you don't really have a say so in that. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if I would really involve my child in that. Does that make sense? And I felt like the kids, and I may be wrong. And like I said, y'all can correct me. I would love to know your thoughts, because literally this whole time I was thinking these kids are way too much in grown folks' business. Way too much in grown folks' business. And that's just the way I was raised. And that's all I can chunk it off to. Samantha is blaming herself. And she's like, I just promised to do whatever you say. I won't go out no more. I won't go get no more ponytails. I promise that I will stay in this house. I won't go outside. Okay. And Smitty said, look, it's not your fault. Both smarty kids, like, look, we just want to know what is going on. And shout out to my girl, Princess. Smitty said, I still don't know. I still don't know. I can't tell you because I don't know. Hence, why kids shouldn't be in grown folks' business. Because how you gonna tell me if I don't know? Stay in and I hate to, that's why I said, if I'm wrong in this, y'all correct me. But this is when I would have said stay in a child's place. And at the end of the day, you are a child. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. So he tells them that all he knows is that Martin went and got them police for protection, and the kids believe, well, that was dad's way of protecting us. And Smitty's like, yeah, but your dad also lied and kept all these secrets. And so he's like, well, please let dad come home so we can talk it out as a family. And Smitty said, look, this secret with Kenny isn't the only thing that your father's been keeping. And I've given him do you hear what I'm saying? Like, do y'all hear everything that I'm reciting to you right now? He's telling this to his kids. Is that not weird to anybody? I'm still trying to grasp it all. If I'm wrong, y'all, I'm giving y'all the room to tell me I need to evolve. I'm giving y'all that space. I'm with that. I'm a Pisces. I'm a fish. I go with the flow. If I need to evolve, I'll go. I'll evolve if that's what needs to happen. He's like, look, I've given your daddy every opportunity to talk about this. So Samantha tries to encourage Smitty to work through it and reminds him of their family policy to tell each other everything. And, Martin didn't do this to put them in harm's way. And so Smitty's apologizing to the kids and telling them, look, this is going to be hard for all of us, okay? But I'm fed up. I'm fed up, okay? And I can't let this situation keep spiraling. And so Samantha questions, well, where's dad going to go? I wish I had something. I love the way Smitty told them kids. He got plenty of family. I'm sure. Look, my notes say he got plenty of family, and I'm sure there's plenty of rooms available at the hotel that Ted and Eva are staying at. Now, Smitty didn't say all that. That's me adding on. But that's what Smitty meant. That's what he meant with his chest. Okay. So Vanessa walks into Offer Jeans and she greets Vern, and she's like, oh, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm here because Martin called this random impromptu press conference, And so Vanessa said, oh, well, I'm here to meet a client, obviously Joey. And so Vernon said, oh, I'm surprised that you be working with somebody like Joey. I thought you had better taste than that, girl. And so Vanessa said, oh, it's real estate, and I'm going to get my coin regardless of who it is, okay? Bill comes over to talk to Martin. Before he can even start, Martin puts him on pause and said, I am determined to do this press conference, and you can't stop me. So Bill says, I'm here to stand by you, although I think it's the wrong decision. And so he says, there's still time to pay off Kenny and, make him go away. And Martin doesn't want to be under KKK Kenny's, Joey, or Bill's thumb any longer. So Bill says, if you insist, then at least let me do you a solid by representing you as your defense attorney, which Martin said, well, thank you. And, I appreciate the support. And so we feel like we're getting somewhere with Bill and Martin, because I don't know if anybody else noticed this. Like, I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but it seems like Bill and Martin have more of a father-son. I mean, obviously we know the father-son dynamic is between Vernon and Martin, but more than Ted. But it seems like even more Bill has more of a father dynamic with with Martin than Ted. Am I the only one that peeps that, or am I missing something? It's okay. Bill tells Martin, well, before you get up here, get on this podium, why don't you go get yourself some water? Refresh yourself. You look a little parched. You get yourself together there. And so he's like, oh, okay, thank you, Bill. And so he said, I'm gonna just go out and introduce you. And so Vernon's like, what the hell are you? And so Vernon comes up to Bill, like, what the hell are you doing? And why haven't you talked Martin out of this? And Bill says, look, I'm stalling because the plan is incubating. Okay. I'm working on it. All right. And so Bill gets up and gives a lovely speech about Martin at childhood selling damn lemonade and lemonade stands, which none of us care about. And Vernon looks out the window and he sees KKK Kenny looking in. But behind KK Kenny is the M&M, not the peanut. Well, maybe it was a peanut. But anyway, it's Marcel, okay? And he's there with a pow pow to KKK Kenny. It leads him off. All right. So at the same time, Vanessa is still questioning Joey while she's there, and Joey is trying to play it off like, "Oh, I just wanted to see you," and Vanessa's like, "Oh, you want to use me as an alibi," and so Bill is still going on and on and oh no, 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 no. That's what Bill was doing, and finally Martin interrupts and said, "Look, Bill, you done," and then that's when Bill gets a text, and it's from Marcel showing that the job has been done, if you know what I'm saying. And KKK Kenny is laid out, you know what I'm saying? And so when he sees the picture, Martin goes into his, he's visibly shaken, right? And so Bill tells the press, we got a family emergency. Press conference over. And that, my people, was episode 90. So let's jump into episode 91. All right. So the queen is back, okay? The queen. She said, I've been gone for a minute. Now I'm back for the jump off. Okay. Anita has returned, relieved to be home when she realizes that no one is there. It's empty. Okay. And down back at All Free Jeans, Bill confirms for Martin, KK Kenny is unalive. Okay. And so Bill, and do we think that he's really unalive, or are they playing with us? Did they just lay him out and stretch him out? Because you never know. Because Randy said he did the job. So I'm a little unsure if KKK Kenny is really gone. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't know if I believe it. I'm gonna need to see a funeral or some a service, a funeral. So Bill tells Martin that he looks like, you all right, you look like you about to pass out. Martin is, because he was in the shakes of it all, you know what I'm saying? So Martin is still in disbelief, and he said, he was like, I was ready to burn my whole life to the ground. And so, mind you, Vanessa and Joey still sitting over there in that booth, and she is still on Joey about why he has her there as an alibi. So Joey tries to gaslight her, and Vanessa keeps digging because she knows something just went down and wants to know what the hell it is. So then she turns on her seductress, okay? And she said, if it's about the Duprees, I want every little dirty detail. And I said, okay, my boss. And so back over, Martin tells Bill and Vernon that I was about to tell the reporters everything, and I was going to take full responsibility for it. I wasn't going to say nothing about you, nobody else. And Bill tells him, don't worry about it. It's handled. We got you. You good. You good, fam. So Martin realizes the photo was, Martin said, that photo was sent in like perfect timing. And he's like, Bill, what you got going on? What the helly? Is that what the young people say? And so Bill tells him that well, the Metro ID Kenny, and they did what they needed to do. And Martin says, nah, the timing was too convenient and neat, and because he was holding a press conference. And I thought about it. Yo, I didn't like when I was watching it, I didn't think, and it hit me like when I stopped it and I rewound it, and I was like, that's so smart. Joey was there, Vernon was there, Bill was there, Martin was there. So when any questions come up about this or any, investigations come up about this man being found unalive, they all have alibis. Martin, I don't even think Martin realized that he saved himself. Like, nasty work. But that's what kind of ended up happening. Because I can only imagine it's going to end up in some investigation. They're going to go looking for people, but at least these people have alibis. The only people who don't are Elon and Marcel. So that'll be interesting. But and who else? Who else wasn't there? Yeah, no, it would just be Elon and Marcel. So Bill just chunks it off. So you know what I'm saying? It's divine intervention and reminds him, yes, someone passed away. But now we're able to move on after having this you're able to move on after having this hanging over your head for 2 years. And he also lets him know that, look, you can finally breathe. Go fix things with your husband. Go live life. Breathe again. That I should never breathe. Breathe. Martin, breathe. Okay. And so he said, Kenny is gone. So meanwhile, the reporters, they sitting there, they like, this is weird. They canceled due to a family emergency, but they still sitting here talking. Don't look real emergent or urgent. And so back over at Vanessa and Joey's table, she's like, look, I don't trust you anyway. So if you want to keep secrets, I'll just go straight to the source. And so Joey grabs her wrist very tightly. And Vanessa asks, oh, are you worried I'm gonna find something out? And he says, I'm not worried, but you should be. And I said, Vanessa, you playing with fire, baby. You playing with fire. I know you. I like you. I like this new you, but I don't think you ready for everything. I think you like role playing, but you ain't ready for the role for real, for real. You know what I'm saying? Martin is talking about how to Bill, like how this makes no sense to him. And Bill is like, look, this is your get out of jail free card. And Martin doesn't think that it is and feels like, well, now my nightmares are not going to stop because I didn't get to tell my truth and said you robbed that from me. And then he's like, oh, so you were stalling me the whole time. And I thought actually you were here supporting me. And so he also questions the timing of the photo again and asks Bill, he was like, keep it 100 and tell him and tell me what's really going on. And Martin starts to piece everything together. And then they're interrupted by reporters who ask about the cancellation. And Martin tells them, look, we're dealing with a private family matter. We just happen to be dealing with it here in Oprah Jeans. Okay. And so someone steps in and, escorts the reporters out, of course. And Martin turns to Vernon and asks him, well, why didn't you stop this? Because he ruthless and he don't give a damn. And Vernon tells him, look, it'll all work out. And Martin feels like, it can't because Bill took the opportunity from him to come clean. And he's upset. No one considered how he felt. And he storms out. And I said, oh, Martin, if you don't get your emo ass, we just solved the whole problem. I was so tired of seeing KK Kenny and his Band-Aid. Martin, if you don't get the hell out of here, boy, bye. So Vernon turns to Bill. I mean, yes, I do. I'm not going to negate his mental health. Okay. I know I've been going to bat for that. Tell it to a therapist. You didn't need to tell the public. Okay. So Vernon turns to Bill and calls Bill a sorry son of a bitch. Back at Vanessa and Joey's table, Vanessa tells Joey that something changed when Martin canceled that press conference and she's demanding to know what. So Joey finally tells her, look, they arranged for a very bad man to be disposed of. And so then Vanessa's like, oh, what do you mean? Disposed? Like in the trash can, or do you mean like the garbage disposal? What type of disposing is you doing? And so he could tell she's a little bit bothered. He said, that's why you don't need to be all in my business. So Vernon is lecturing Bill about not keeping his word when it came to KKK Kenny. And Bill said, no, I never told you that I wasn't going to handle things the way I was going to handle it. You heard what you wanted to hear with your self-righteous ass. Okay. And he explains that money wasn't going to cut it this time. And Vernon doesn't want his family. But Vernon is more upset about having his family as an accessory to, you know, unaliving, right? Well, Bill's like, and you know I'm not that sloppy. That's why anytime you have a mess, you call me. And so Vernon lets Bill know that's where you confuse. You need me a whole lot more than I need you. And so Bill says until one of your dysfunctional family members implode again. And then he said, you know what? Maybe next time I won't come help. And instead I tell him to go to hell. Okay, so Vernon tells him, I hope you feel better getting it off your chest. But reminds him who holds the power in that room. And I said, well, all right. So Smitty and the kids, and they still at the house waiting for Martin to come home so they can talk. Smitty's phone's going off, but it's not Martin. It's actually his reporter friend, Gordon. He asked the kids to leave the room so he can take the call. He takes the call, and they tell him about the cancel press conference, and that, of course, Smitty knew nothing about. And he's like, but I'm not going to comment on my husband. I see what you're trying to do, and I peep game, but I clocked it. But no, that's not what we're doing. Finally, Martin, can I tell you, I was so sad. Even though I really wanted Martin to get left. Like, he is a butthole, y'all. And I know this sounds so crazy because if you go back and you watch my old reviews and how I have laid into Martin, I felt so bad that he finally came clean. And it was just too late. It was just too late. It was, oh, I don't know if it was worse than Ted or I guess a little bit better because he got it before it. I don't know. I can't even hold you. I felt bad. I felt bad. All right, we'll get into it. I'm sorry. I just had to say that. So Martin finally gets home and he wants to explain. And Smitty asks Martin, oh, so now you want to talk? That's what you want to do. So Samantha tries, Dad, can you calm down? And so Martin admits, look, y'all deserve better. I promise. I'm not hiding no more. And so when Smitty asked him, well, tell us, what is it? What is it? And so Martin asked the kids, can you let me and your daddy talk alone? And Smitty said, no, they deserve to hear it too. I said, oh, Smitty mad. Smitty mad. And so Samantha's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna go upstairs. And Tyrell is too. And no, but Tyrell was like, nah, I want to hear the tea. And she said, take your ass upstairs, okay? So Martin starts with how deeply sorry he is. And Smitty said, I don't want apologies or your guilt. I want answers. Okay. So then he let Martin know he ran into KKK Kitty and he wants to know what happened 2 years ago and says if he lies to him one more time and before he can finish, woo, Martin takes us down this road. Boy. And look, let me refresh, get my water. Because what did I tell y'all? I think I said this. They was probably going down to some back road on the eastern shore of Maryland. And for all y'all that are not familiar with the eastern shore, that's along like as you're going up towards Ocean City. Okay. And again, there's a lot of MAGA Trump flags there. Okay. I'm gonna just say that. So I absolutely believe that's where they were. They were they were coming from a political event. They were keying. They were on some country road. They got a flat tire. A pickup showed up, pulled up. KKK Kenny and his brother pulled up, harassed him, and then Vernon jumps out the car because he was in the car at first. Vernon comes out the car and he's like, oh, and he's like talking to him because he realizes that they're kind of like heckling Martin or whatever. So he's like, oh, we good. We're just here to change the tire, whatever. And thank you for, being of assistance, trying to do it in a graceful way. Right. And so then as he does that, the guy's like, and he's like, we're going to call for the police for assistance. And so the guy's like, oh, well, they don't change tires. And they go to take the tire iron out of Martin's hand, while KKK Kenny has a pow pow in his pocket, is getting ready to pull it on Vernon, and Martin spots this and just starts whooping on everybody. And I was here for it. I was here for it. I was so triggered. I'm just saying. Not that I've ever been stumped on a country road or anything. I literally have, y'all know, my mom lives down in North Carolina. And when I take my son down there, I literally always have that fear of being broke down on a country road. So that's why I say I was triggered, because that's literally like a fear of mine. So yeah, so basically Martin whooped their ass. Okay. He completely pulverized KKK Kenny's face. He unalived the other man, but that's where the let's see what colors your money came in. So Smitty is just in disbelief about everything he heard. And Martin tells him he doesn't really know what happened after, but tells him Vernon handled it and Marcel and Elon were right there in line. And Smitty now realizes that Elon was in on it. And so Martin tells him, it was an awful night and that's why he couldn't tell him. And so then Smitty realizes, well, KKK Kenny was still left. So, and he's like, well, what happened with that? And so Martin admits that, yeah, you know, then Joey Armstrong got brought in on it. So now Smitty's connecting the dots with the payments that Malone received. And he tells Martin, well, you were just defending yourself. But Martin tells him, but there was no guarantees. And, he talks about the rage that he felt when the YT man put his hands on his grandfather. And he still can't believe that he beat his that bad. All right. And so Smitty's like, look, I'm sorry. And that you were living in hell this whole time. And they hug it out. And we think that they're going, make up and it's going to be all good. And then Martin tells Smitty that KKK Kenny, he was the only one to survive. So then Martin explains how Ted jumped in with the plastic surgery with KKK Kenny. And then they gave him some money to start a new life overseas, completely away from them. So Smitty is, again, still connecting all the dots. And so then Martin says, but by the way, I didn't even know this whole time, because his whole face had been reconstructed, that he'd been running around here for weeks around the country club. I had no idea. And so Smitty's upset. And he was like, I'm just mad that you knew this man was around blackmailing us for weeks and you had our family at risk and you didn't say nothing. And Martin was like, well, my grandfather didn't want to say anything and want me to say anything. And I love when Smitty said, I'm not in a relationship with your grandfather. That part. And so he tells Smitty, well, one of us had to stay clean for Samantha and Tyrell's sake, but Smitty isn't hearing that, right? So then we jump back over to Offrey Jeans, and Marcel comes, and he comes in and he's just kind of like basically playing dumb because it's not even open at this point. But he's clearly waiting around for Joey. So Vanessa, I'm not gonna hold you. This is the one time Vanessa really turned me off. Like Vanessa's like, come on over. So Joey's like, what you doing? And so she's like, oh, so he let me know how y'all are really into the disposal business. Vanessa, that's like Mob Wife 101. You act like you don't know and you mind your business and you just sit around and pick up the conversation. You don't talk. Like, what are you doing? Oh my God. So Marcella asked Joey to remind him, what do you find attractive about this mouthy little heifer over here? So Joey says, I appreciate a smart mouth, especially when it knows to stop. And so he tells Vanessa, fun time is over. When Vanessa tries to have a rebuttal and he says, enough. Okay. And that kind of snaps Vanessa back into reality. And he tells her, look, this is not a game. And if you push tonight, anything I told you tonight or ever, our fun ain't going to end on a poker table. And it'll be a much less happy ending for you. And I said, ooh. And it won't end with shrimp and grits in the morning. Because y'all know Joey like to cook. He looked like a brother that like to cook you breakfast in the morning. I'm just saying. Um, and so Malone said, "Well, look, I'm good. Job's done. Okay." Um, and Joey just wants to make sure that Vanessa gonna keep her mouth shut, right? So then back at home, Vernon finally makes it home. And of course, he's thrilled when he sees Anita there. And she quickly realizes, nah, something is up. So Vernon's trying to really, he's like, what brought you back? He's trying to get into her. She's like, no, 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 no. I seen from the look on your face, you ain't telling me something. So tell me what's up. So basically, Vernon tells Anita, like, look, I wanted to tell you last visit. And she's like, okay, stop stalling. Time. Okay. And so finally, Vernon tells her that, look, that night from 2 years ago that we never talk about, that's come back. And our grandson is really drowning. And I said, oh, now you realize that, Vernon? Or you gonna wait till he's sitting on your doorstep? Or he entered into the place with the padded walls. But okay. So then we see Bill down at the country club having a drink when Danny rolls up conveniently. How convenient, right? And so, Bill was like, "You are the last person I should be talking to." And so Danny said, "Look, if you still upset about that Haley mess, please remember that your wife brought her ass over to my house, so she upset herself, knowing that I wasn't okay with this little situation and scenario that y'all got going on." And Bill said, "Okay, blame her, not you. Your usual. I know you." And so, and she was like, just like I know you, and you happy that I showed up. So Bill admits, well, your daddy just chewed me out. And Danny said, well, did you have it coming? I love this because it goes back to your point, Elaine, and we talked about it in the membership. I think that I'm now starting to feel that there was a lot that maybe Vernon was asking of Bill or favors and stuff. And Bill was just tired of doing it. And maybe he really did want to be like relinquished from that. And because you notice he said that one time when he was he was with Haley or no, Danny, when he was like, no, I let you, like, I wanted to be free of this. He wanted to be free of the Dupree situation. So it makes me think that like maybe he really did. Not saying that I'm softening up to Bill at all, but I'm just I can see both sides of things, and maybe he really just did want to be apart from the Duprees and this and being used by them. Even though he's still doing it. So that's why I said I can't fully defend him, but I do think that may have had something to do with maybe why it was I don't know. I just think that maybe it has something to do with the marriage falling apart, if that makes sense. So basically, Danny tells him that, my daddy wouldn't have dished it out to you if he knew you couldn't handle it. And brings up how, he saw something in Bill way back in the day when they were dating. She's like, you and my dad always compliment each other and you still do. And Bill said, I don't think so no more. Your daddy really don't with me now. So then back at the Smarty household job. Smitty can't move past the fact that their kids were in danger and tells Martin that, you know what? He confronted Kenny and he didn't know any better. And he lets Martin know that KKK Kenny said Martin was the villain in the story. So Smitty tells Martin that, you owed me and our kids protection once you knew Kenny was back and you failed us. And so Martin tells him that, he was wrong for his choices. He was wrong for lying to him. And Smitty tells him, I'm sorry you suffered like that, but I ain't here for it. And I think it's still dangerous. And Martin's like, no, it's not. And Smitty's like, nah, I can't be sure of that. And I need you to leave tonight. I need you to go. And so Martin said, I promise you it's not an issue. And Smitty's like, well, how do I know that? And he said, because KK Kenny is alive. And that was the end of episode 91. So yeah, y'all. That's why I didn't throw 92 in here because obviously I'm getting a little lengthy. But I will put 92 in a separate little box and bow and seal it and deliver it to y'all. So if you have not already, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you guys comment. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure that you're following us on all the platforms. That's a TikTok, IG, Facebook. What's the other one? Oh, Blue Sky and the X. And again, y'all, thank you so much for the well wishes. As you can see, I'm actually feeling like my voice is starting to go out again. So it's about time for me to get out of here and get some rest. And I'm gonna start making sure I get more rest. So I won't end up in more situations like this. That's the lesson that I've learned. I need to take my ass to sleep. But I love y'all. Thank y'all. Have a good night, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Bye bye.